She booked a private chef for a client. I showed up with knives. I cook for people who think appetite is a secret you feed in dim rooms. That's the job when you're a private chef. Arrive with a black case of knives, a cooler full of decisions, and the posture of a priest who blesses without asking questions. I've seen couples make up over butter and break up over burnt sugar. I've watched strangers turn into lovers between the second glass of wine and the spoon that chases the last shine of sauce. Kitchens, especially other people's, are where truth loses its manners. My name is Reed. I met my wife, Leela, when she walked into a pop-up I ran out of a borrowed gallery. She'd come to pitch me on staging the place with her firm's furniture. I sold her on staying for dinner. She sat on the prep table in a silk dress that didn't mind a dusting of flour, ankles crossing and uncrossing while I taught her how to feel a steak relax. When she lifted a tasting spoon to my lips, I could taste more than time. We never pretended our beginning was subtle. Marriage softened us without making us dull. We learned each other like good recipes, what needed heat, what needed time, what never to let boil. She'd slide onto the counter in one of my shirts, bare legs swinging, and I'd caramelize onion until the room turned the color of her laugh. On late nights, she'd lean on the doorframe while I scrubbed pans, tracing circles on the back of my neck with a finger that knew exactly the map of me. We were the kind of couple that made people say, "Get a room," and then ask for the recipe. Work ran like a double shift. Leela staged apartments for photos and seduction, making vacant rooms look like they woke up wanting you. I cooked in those rooms sometimes after the sale, closing dinners, celebration tastings, the soft launch parties where everything smells like the future. We kept the dance clean. She handled daylight and throw pillows. I handled the hours when music lives on the edge of the plate. The booking came through my site on a Wednesday, a 5-course chef's table for 2 in a penthouse I knew by elevator hum alone. The message was brief and expensive. Oysters to start. No cilantro. A dessert with drama. The sender used an email that looked like it belonged to a lawyer who rents suits to his own ambition. The final line made me snort. Discretion essential. Discretion is my messy en place. I prepped like I always do, everything sharp, everything quiet. There's comfort in the ritual, wiping down the steel until the counters reflect your hands back at you, scoring duck skin like you're writing a love letter no one will read, tucking herbs under a damp towel as if they're sleeping children. I packed the cooler with oysters, duck breasts, fennel, dark chocolate, and the oranges that behave when you flirt with them over fire. I tucked my blowtorch into its pocket. If dessert wanted drama, we'd give it theater. Astor House's private elevator knows my thumbprint. I'm on their vendor list. The ride up is slow enough to make you feel worthy. The door opened into the kind of room that pretends windows are walls and the city is your pet. Candles already labored to appear casual. A low playlist murmured expensive intimacy. I followed the discreet path all good apartments offer their help, through a pocket door and into a kitchen bigger than our first place. He was there. Stefan, the trainer whose face appears on posters near bodies that shake on purpose and pay for it. He had the kind of jaw that makes bad ideas stand at attention. He smiled with a few teeth less than he owned, like a man saving something for later. "You're early," he said, as if that were a problem he planned to enjoy. "I like food to arrive hot," I said, "and true." He nodded as if I'd complimented him. "She'll be here soon." He said it in a tone men use when the woman is a dish they ordered, and the kitchen is late. I checked the fridge, found the space they'd cleared for me, slid in my trays, lined up my knives. My hands were steady. I had no reason to notice the coat thrown careless over a chair by the windows, a camel trench with a scarf the color of pomegranates looped through the sleeve. I'd seen coats like that. I'd bought one like that and watched it fall to the floor of our bedroom while the world outside insisted on weather. Her laugh reached me before she did, low, unrolled across the floor like a carpet you only notice when you trip over it. Leela laughed that way when she liked what she'd done. She laughed that way when she liked what was about to happen. I looked up because the body obeys old calls. She stepped in, hair loose, a small black dress that considered her and decided to behave. She was already apologizing to me with her eyes, which is to say she'd known for at least an hour that I might be the one behind the knives. The pomegranate scarf was around her neck now. I could smell it from where I stood, her perfume with a bright, foreign note I didn't know. A Jim's eucalyptus, another man's soap. Our marriage was fluent. I understood without translating. She took a breath only I would notice. "Read," she said, voice even, mouth resisting any shape but the right one. "What a surprise." "Not for me," Stefan said. "He's one of the best." He put a hand on the small of her back like a possession filing itself. "We wanted to celebrate good news properly." Good news. My hands returned to work. Oysters first, their clean ocean yawn. I shucked them without drama, thumb finding hinge, blade doing what it was made to do. I dressed them with mignonette and a whisper of pink grapefruit, because bitterness can be beautiful if you dare it. I served the tray to the coffee table where their knees would learn something. Leela met my gaze over the curve of a shell. "You can say a lot at a distance with eyebrows and breath. Please. And not here. And I know." The playlist exhaled something with a bass that tried too hard. Stefan slurped. He made the appreciative noise men make when they want the room to applaud. "You like oysters?" he asked her, leaning in as if he were offering the sea. "I like what they want from you," she answered, and if he heard the sentence I did, he didn't show it. Back in the kitchen, I laid fennel on the board, halved it, shaved it thin so it went feathery under the knife. I tossed it with crisp apple and lemon, a plate to wake the mouth and occupy hands. Leela slid through the pocket door under an excuse that didn't try. "Don't do this," she whispered, close enough that the air touched us with old obligations. "Do what?" I asked, keeping my eyes on the fennel. "Turn a plate into a punishment, please." Her mouth trembled, then firmed. "We hired you because you're the best. I didn't know it was you until the elevator opened." "You booked a chef," I said. "You didn't check which one." "Read." I turned then. The dress made old promises look new. The scarf at her throat looked like a mark. I set the knife down because it's bad form to talk with a blade in your hand when your heart is making a point. "Finish the dinner," she said. "We talk after. I'll send him home with a story." "You think he'll leave if you tell him the chef is your husband?" "He's vain, not cruel," she said, and the precision of it made me respect the insult. The salad made them nod and murmur and angle knees the way people do when they want to show themselves to each other. I seared the duck low and patient, skin rendering into a gold that tempted me to forgive. The kitchen filled with the smell of fat being told what to do. I brushed the meat with a reduction that refused to be cloying. I plated it with charred orange and roasted fig, sweet meeting heat on purpose. Between courses, Stefan wandered in without knocking, as if kitchens were rooms he'd bought. He leaned on the island and watched me work like men watch other men change a tire, curious, competitive, ready to comment. "How'd you learn to do that?" he asked, nodding at the pan like it might answer. "By burning a few," I said, and he laughed like we were comrades. He didn't see Leela's eyes flick at me, "I'm sorry." He didn't see mine return, "So am I." I saved my theater for last. The chocolate custard set soft, a promise under a thin sheet of caramel I planned to crack with a warm spoon. I candied orange peel and shaved chocolate in curls that would melt on the tongue like private jokes. For drama, the blowtorch. Flame is primal. It persuades before it reasons. When I brought the desserts to the table, Leela's hand was on Stefan's knee, not possessive but bracing. I set the bowls down, lit the torch with a soft PHHT, and glazed the sugar while they watched, flames blue shifting to gold. In the sugar of Leela's bowl, a message appeared where I dusted cocoa through a stencil I'd cut with a paring knife in the elevator. Just a word. Later. She flinched like the room had said her name. I cleaned the kitchen while they ate Honesty's cousin. I heard the gentle sounds bodies make when they get closer without needing to impress. Fabric shifting, breath aligning, a glass set down carefully, a small, impossible-to-fake sigh. It wasn't explicit, it was the choreography of wanting. I've spent my adult life feeding that. Tonight I stood between the stove and the sink and felt like a man who'd built a bridge for a parade that wasn't about him. When I stepped out to clear plates, they sat composed, her lipstick a little less on her and a little more everywhere else. Stefan slid a heavy tip in cash on the tray, the way rich men do when they want approval. "You're a legend," he said, already reaching for his phone. Leela said, "Give us the room," softly, and he complied without knowing he'd obeyed the most important instruction of the night. We stood by the kitchen island, the candles conspiring, the city pretending we were alone. "What do you want me to say?" she asked. "The truth without excuses," I said. My voice surprised me by being kind. She exhaled. "I wanted to feel like the main dish again," she said. "Not the garnish. I wanted the room to turn its head when I walked in, and not because I set the flowers. He gives me that look like I invented light." "And what do I give you?" I asked, not masochistic, not brave, just asking. "You give me home," she whispered. "You give me the after. You give me the quiet that feels like being seen. I got addicted to the before." We stood there with that. The playlist, exhausted by itself, surrendered to silence. The city performed a small miracle. A breeze lifted the curtains and reminded us the window was not a painting. "If I ask him to leave," she said finally, "will you stay? Tonight, not forever. Just so I don't do the next stupid thing because I'm alone with momentum." It wasn't forgiveness. It was triage. I nodded. She walked into the other room with the spine of a woman who knows how to walk away from a cliff without embarrassing it. I heard low voices, the expensive goodbye that men like Stefan take personally because they confuse exit with insult. The door clicked. Footsteps returned, bare now, her heels in her hand like an admission. We sat on the floor with our backs against expensive cabinets. I poured us both water. It tasted like the first sip after good news that hasn't learned its own name. Leela rested her head on my shoulder the way she used to at the end of long services. We didn't touch anywhere else. We talked like people who had decided not to lie. No details to weaponize, no speeches to memorize. Just the practical poetry of next steps. "I'll go to my sister for a while," she said. "You can have the apartment. Take the Dutch oven. I know it's really yours." "We'll split the books," I said. "You can keep the pomegranate scarf." She laughed, surprised at herself, then surprised it hurt less than it should. We didn't kiss. We didn't perform closure for a camera that wasn't there. She walked me to the elevator and stood there, arms crossed like she was holding herself in, and I touched her cheek with the back of my fingers because my palm would have said too much. "You were beautiful at the table," I said, not meaning the dress. "You were cruel," she answered, meaning the dessert, and smiled with a wet mouth. "Thank you for not being more so." In the weeks that followed, I cooked a lot for people who weren't us. Food kept me honest. On nights I didn't have clients, I made myself dinner in a kitchen that looked smaller without her hips leaning into it. I learned that the quiet you earn is better than the quiet you're given. I burned onions once on purpose to smell the line between grief and caramel. There's more to tell. Lawyers with neat shirts, keys changing hands, a therapist who told me to season less and listen more. But the part that matters is this. One evening, months later, a sommelier named Quinn hired me for a private tasting she was curating. She carried herself like a confession bottled for travel. We set up in a bookstore after hours, pairing oyster mushrooms with a mercurial white that tasted like rain remembers metal, duck with a red that made strangers put their hands on the back of their own necks and sigh, chocolate with something old enough to get a vote. We didn't flirt on purpose. We flirted the way knives flirt with light. When we broke down at midnight, she asked, "Where do you go when the room stops clapping?" "Home," I said, "or nowhere if home is loud." She nodded like we'd agreed on something without saying it. I walked her to the street, and when our hands touched over the latch on the case of stems, I felt the calm heat of something that doesn't need to perform to be believed. I still cook for people whose appetite is a secret. I still arrive with knives, leave without crumbs, and keep the recipes that can survive candles and lies. If you ever book me and ask for drama at dessert, I'll bring fire. But I won't write words in sugar anymore. I learned that the sweetest things refuse to be read like that. They're shared, spoon by spoon, across a table that isn't pretending to be anything but ours.